You know what? I've never heard your kind of origin story, man, and how you got into crypto. Do you mind maybe like just sharing just for a couple minutes on how that happened?
Yeah, so I think the first time around was for the last bull run, but I was late to it. So basically, like the typical beginner story where you come in at the wrong time. Slight difference for me is that I did get excited about like a 50% increase. And so a lot of what I had was sold at that point. So I actually did leave that situation quite well,
Yeah.
considering the level of experience. And then it was about basically just riding the whole downward spiral, accumulating just the whole way down. So when you look at the average buy orders for things, it's not great, but it's better than buying at the peak.
Gotcha.
But because I just bought incrementally, and as time has gone on, and since creating the channel, my capacity to accumulate a little bit more,
Yeah.
thankfully, has also been down here at the bottom.
Yeah.
So the amount of impact I've done on the portfolio is more extreme down here.
Yeah.
But in terms of like tokens, it starts with Bitcoin, as I think most people's journey does. Bitcoin and Ethereum, then you get into meme coins and realize why they're called meme coins. And then I really got into TA and started learning to read the charts. And that was all the way down that I was doing that. And I really fell in love with the Fibonacci retracement tool. And that was like the basis for starting the channel as well. Because I had so many people, so many of my friends demanding my time, asking me to explain the same thing over and over. And I just thought, I'm just going to make a video that tells you what I'm saying just for you. And it just so happened that many other people enjoyed watching those videos.
Yeah.
That started the channel. Interestingly, I actually held 90% in my portfolio at one point, XRP, without knowing what XRP really was.
Oh, wow.
And it was really just like, someone in a family friend of ours, he's an investor and he's got lots of cash. And he was talking about XRP constantly. And I just thought, okay, if he's talking about XRP, I'll just get into it. And I got into it heavily because my risk tolerance is like non-existent.
Yeah, I know that. I feel that.
And then it was, I entered the era of discovery of what XRP was. And that's led me ultimately over the last kind of year and a half to where we are now.
Yeah.
You know, that understanding and being brought into the XRP community and then realizing that other people have found the same things. And, you know, that's up until today.
XRP really does. You know what though? Like, if we're talking about digital assets, Bitcoin is there, right? And it's the most well known. But when it comes to like updates and things that are happening on the chain, right? You can't really get a better experience than XRP. It really has. Everything is happening week to week, right? You're getting like new announcements. Like this week we got the Colombia announcement, right? The CBDC Colombia announcement. You just get hammered with so much amazing news and you're like, how does this thing never just peak at all with some of this news? And I know it's Ripple's making these partnerships and it really doesn't correlate to the price. And like that's the whole SEC thing was like buying it because of Ripple. You're really buying it because it's an ecosystem that is just maturing and being built out and it's going to have such rich experience. But what are your thoughts on the Ripple and SEC lawsuit? You think it's coming to an end soon or you think we're in for a couple more months of just waiting?
I actually think it's a real mixed bag.
Yeah.
I don't think there is a dead set outcome. I'd probably reside on the side, like when you look at the chart, there seems to be the possibility of the price to come down a little bit further.
Yeah.
So what possibly could bring the price down a little bit further? Like think, what possibly could bring crypto down? One of those is that the SEC win.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Imagine that would satisfy a lot of the TA that's out there. What would also bring the price down is a settlement that's not favorable, or we're going to take this to trial, like with a jury, which we've just added 2 years onto the timeline there. Like these are the types of events that happen that can satisfy some of the structures being built on the TA side.
Yeah.
Alternatively, there are other TA structures that are being looked at to say there's an exact amount of time that kind of goes by from peaks to bottoms or the final capitulation that we've also satisfied right now that could be the inflection point.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to reside in the chart for the decisions that might be made on the grander scheme of things. And you have to look at the percentage chance that you give, the either upside or the downside on the chart, and allow that to inform what you think is going to happen in real life. Because and I know for a lot of people, that would be like the complete opposite way of thinking about it. But also, these things happen in the news right at the perfect time on the charts, a lot of the time. And it's interesting how that happens. I think it's just because biologically humans are like, after a certain period of time, after a certain period of bullishness or bearishness, we act predictably over time.
Yeah.
And so maybe that, I'm sure it does, that plays into the fact that when the price comes up to certain retracement levels on the Fibonacci tool, that decisions are typically made at that point. And that's maybe why the retracement levels are rejection points or takeoff points. And so I look at it more from the biological side and the removing emotion side, looking at the chart to inform me what might happen. So I really think, like with the court case, I want with all of my heart for Ripple to win, because if Ripple wins, the amount of things that start from that point, it's the bull run that starts. It's the, I believe, IPO season for all the crypto companies starts. Yeah. It's like, it's now, it's happening right now. It's not coming back down to this level again. Like that type of feeling. Settlement could go many ways, right? It could, if they settle with, we don't know if it's favorable or not, then we're going to be in this accumulation period for a little bit longer. It's just like, there's so many outcomes, and all I know is that time seems to be on the chart running out. Like we're right there for where something happens.
It does feel like, I think Ripple won't, and I wouldn't enter into settlement unless it was favorable to them, because they've gone this far, and what's another 6 months or a year if they have to stay in that longer? So my personal feeling is that if they're going to get any kind of resolution, that they would need XRP and secondary sales to be clear, and then maybe they go to court for the initial sales to those providers that they sold to, or the institutions or the money makers or whatever it is that they sold to in the beginning. I think they could go do a jury trial on that and really decide, because let's be honest, the network wasn't decentralized, right? In the beginning when those sales happened, and Ripple was in control of most of the consensus nodes and things like that. So I think maybe you will see a jury trial for some of that if it does get that far, but I don't know, man. It feels like I was reading some stuff about the Biden administration that they're looking to maybe clean house or do something on. They're not happy with Gary Gensler and probably Jerome Powell and Janet Yellen for how the economy's gone up and down in the US over the last couple of years since he's taken office. And so fighting inflation's taken, 2 years to get back down to 4% where we are right now in the US. And I know the UK is a little bit higher, and Australia and some other places like Germany just went into a recession. But how are you guys feeling in the UK? Like, are you guys noticing you guys are in coming into a recession, or have you felt like you guys have been in a recession in the last 12 to 18 months? Or what's the feeling like on the ground there?
I think if you look from like the blanket perspective, I think people are surviving but struggling.
Yeah.
I personally haven't noticed, whereas I previously would have noticed because I was on a minimum wage job before I quit for YouTube. So I would have felt that. I haven't personally. I will say though, when I was in Houston a couple of months ago, I felt it there.
Really? It
was so expensive. I felt like everything was so expensive in the States. And that typically wasn't the case. Typically, in my whole childhood growing up and everything, we would come over to Orlando, wherever we go, with empty suitcases because it was so cheap, because we would go to the mall and just fill the suitcases up. And I went this time and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how expensive it was. And I can truly see how people are struggling in the States. I felt like it was more extreme in the States than it was here. But also I have a slight inclination to just not believe the news anymore. And so the only thing I've heard about really of the effects of inflation have been from the news. And I really can't lean on them as trustworthy information.
BlackRock owns everything, so you're really getting news from one source.
From all friends, from all family that I've talked to, no one seems to be having the issue that the news is talking about. But of course, there are people who are having those issues. Like a £200 increase in the mortgage makes a real difference in lots of households. I completely understand that. I just haven't come across that yet. I heard somebody say something the other day. It was like, we've been told that what we see through our eyes is a lie. If we are told the same thing over and over, we start to ignore what we see and believe something that we don't see. It's very interesting. And I think a lot of that fear mongering that happens with banks and the news, I'm not saying that is the case. I'm just saying that plays a role in my view of everything. So yeah, I don't know. I don't It's making an impact on a lot of people, I'm sure. I haven't seen it with my eyes.
No, that's fair enough, man.